I want to thank Marcos and the organizers for inviting me and for hosting this wonderful event. I know how difficult it could be to put together these things, especially a big conference. So I'm very grateful, and I think we are all grateful that we managed to keep on the conversation going, also face to face. The topic of my talk today is inactivism and naturalism. And as some of you know, I was thinking, what should I do this? So different people were asking for a lot of details about collective. How you know, in a historical activist view, we think of collective intentionality, we think of social interaction, social groups, and language. But in order to, I would say something about that at the end, and we can discuss more in the Q&A session. It's very important to get clear about the framework. Discuss is both the methodological framework and the ontological framework for thinking about cognition. And this is not only because there are central issues that concern naturalism that connect with how we understand inactivism and inactivism vis-a-vis other positions which are not inactivist, because the very concept, the very notion, the very understanding of cognition depends in part on how we understand a very crucial, important question. And it's very important that we get clear about this. And this problem, the problem of how to, the problem of the relationship to cognition and naturalism comes from a very old ancient problem. And this here is Rosenberg talking about this. He says, intentionality raises for naturalism, that intentionality raises for naturalism, has been obvious enough since Descartes and even Plato. How can a clump of matter, for example, the brain, or some proper part of it, have, let's say, content? Because we know that people are not just discussing propositional content, they are discussing content in general. So be about some other thing in the universe. And the way people think of cognition is connected to this idea that it has content. It relates the brain or the organism in an aboutness relationship. And the question is, how can that relationship be made sense of in a naturalistic conception of the world? So within nature. That's the question. It's the same old question, right? Form and sort of, if you wish, classical way of thinking about naturalism is what I would call the strict scientific naturalism, which can also be thought as the time. So according to this kind of naturalism, the right vision of nature is the one we get from hard sciences and hard sciences. So what naturalism requires is a purely physical causal account of intentionality that itself makes no overt or covert appeal to semantical concepts. And this goes back, well, I think it's fair enough to say maybe it goes back to Plato, but if we are thinking in the context of cognition and thinking about the relationship to brain and environment, one good reference is Fodor. And Fodor has been trying for years to give a naturalistic account of content, and he started by thinking that he could give an account of meaning in naturalistic terms, but he now thinks that while he was right, that meaning is a myth, still trying to naturalize content in a Cartesian way, externalistic content. So individual properties of kind, a purely referential semantic he says, is the only available candidate for a naturalistic science of cognition. And this is, of course, related to this idea that we need to be a naturalistic account. And we can't have a naturalistic account of the other notion of content, but maybe we can have a naturalistic account of this notion of content. Now, you will see this will come immediately from Rosenberg. It's somehow problematic to put this unreduced notion of content into the world if one has to scientific naturalism. Because the question is what that is, like how we can make sense of that notion of hard sciences. And the issue is how do we get from the non-semantic, which we understand we have when physics does not presuppose content, which might be a problem with this pure referential semantics. So you cannot just say, the word contains it, because you have to leave a paraphrase of that in terms of the hard sciences, vocabulary and source of explanation, a story about how you go from non-semantic causal interactions to content. So how we make this distinction. Right? Another sort of, we heard about this already from both Eric and Dan. Another sort of very popular way of thinking, of trying to naturalize content is to connect content with biological proper functions. We can did and others. So the idea would be to use this notion of purpose or function that comes from biology and Darwin and understand content in those very same terms. You don't need to make sort of reference to the notion of content as an unexplained item, but that we can understand it in terms now of biology. But as also I think Dan and Eric said, it's not clear that whatever you get from that evolutionary story is a notion of content, functioning properly under the proper condition as an information carrier and getting things right and things that come apart. You can function properly without explanation. Content is more controversial if you're not function properly. So these things are the same phenomena. Naturalistic selection does not care about truth, it cares about relative success. As long as you have relative success, you have the evolutionary story going. But that does not require truth or correctness in a sense which tracks truth instead of just success. Right? You might be successful without tracking truth. So here is Rosenberg tell you why this is very wrong. Science can't accept interpretation as providing knowledge of human affairs if it can at least in principle be absorbed into perhaps even be reduced to neuroscience. And the idea here is that we need to restrict to the resources of hard sciences, and that hard sciences the scientific explanation comes with a commitment to a unification agenda. So we need to be able to tell a story that does not, make appeal to extra domains. It has to be just in the one domain that we're giving our story about content. So intentionality must be explained in the pure physical causal terms, reduced to a phenomena at that level. And what is in the world according to Rosenberg says, what is the world really like? It is fermions and bosons and everything that can be made up of them and nothing that can be made up of them. All the facts about fermions and bosons determine our feelings, all of the other facts about reality. So this means there is no room in the world the facts are fixed by physical facts for a set of free-floating independently existing norms or values, as this was already discussed yesterday in the launch of the book. There cannot be something that just humans are uniquely equipped to discern or act upon, or if reality contains only the kind of things that the hard science recognize, any physical facts fit all the facts, then there are no purposes, right? So there's something quite wrong in the project that Mimica was involving or is still involving. Purposes altogether in biology, in human affairs, and in human thought processes. And coherently, people conclude what just follows from this, which is you should be an eliminationist, right? If reality of things that the hard sciences recognize, and there is this commitment to unification, because natural sciences are committed to it, then talk about content is misleading and it should be eliminated. We should do without this notion of content comes and content. So maybe heuristic cases or even just an illusion if you take it really seriously. Okay, and that not only fits what Rosenberg and Askin said, but it also fits how some of the theories, current theories, several ways with activism, think of so system theory that take content talk to be purely metaphorical. They have a strong continuity commitment, and then they basically describe all sorts of different mental phenomena with basically the same vocabulary. Also, what that and Eric called computation-only cognition, of which I think we have a representative in the room, though I will leave call it or not. And it's the idea again that it's just, it's the proper way to go about this is to just keep the computational terms and eliminate talk about content. That is just conventional, heuristic way of talking, really. But here it comes. There is an issue about whether this unification maxim is really philosophical, is really motivated by the science, right? Because it seems to be an extra scientific, ideologically driven constraint on scientific inquiry, right? So the idea that there's nothing else in reality, it's a metaphysical claim. Right? So this is one issue. Leads to a very exclusive conception of both method and ontology that, for example, someone like Williamson criticized because he thinks that naturalism itself loses credibility if one takes it to be so strict. Why this is so, that mentioned about this. It should be discovered by hard science that these are the only truth, if you are completely coherent. That's by referring to the hard sciences, that the hard sciences are the ones to be referred to. Fortunately or fortunately, this is not so. We cannot conclude just from hard sciences, and hard sciences are all of which are those from which the truth are going to arise. So not all truths are discoverable by hard sciences, but all truths are discoverable by sciences is not discoverable by hard sciences. So are all the truths discoverable by hard sciences? This is not a question of hard science. Truth is a logical or semantic property, discoverability is an epistemic one, and hard science is a social process. So it seems that from this picture of nature, what we get is an impoverished conception of both ontology and methodology, one that cannot even make sense of the practice of the hard science itself. So this is really bad. This is an internal problem. It's not just an external criticism. The problem seems to be that strict naturalism, that is a legitimate way, is just too strict. So some people have thought we should go liberal. Liberal naturalism rejects the claim that science is or ought to be our only genuine and unproblematic guide, method, or knowledge, or ontology, or semantics. Everything, really. Will be a short way of saying that. There are whole domains of fact with respect to which present-day science says nothing at all. Science has taught us that the universe is an inherent machine. The inherent machine may be all that there is to the worlds of physics and chemistry and biology. But the worlds of physics and chemistry and biology are not the only worlds we have. It's from Putnam. This is a restrictive, too restrictive conception of nature. And what liberal naturalism defended and developed by Harold MacArthur, but with the help of many others I will point now, they try to outline a new, non-reductive form of naturalism. Right? It's important that this is a form of naturalism, but that tries to have an inclusive conception of nature that the one provided by natural science. So here are some of the advocates that at least contributed to a couple of volumes on this, on liberal naturalism, the Schondorf pluralistic naturalism, Philip Hornsby naive naturalism, John McDowell liberal naturalism, Charles Orwell minded expansive naturalism, Bradley, Stanley Cavell, and Carol Robin, to name. All right, so according to, indeed, sort of Mario De Caro and David MacArthur are trying to get into a conception of naturalism that sort of brings together these different positions into a coherent view of nature, which is expansive enough to make sense of each conception of nature. So one that assumes a multiplicity of kinds of things in nature and a multiplicity of and investigating them. So it's both pluralistic with respect to method and with respect to ontology. And here is from Talia Moran. Liberal naturalism takes seriously the plurality of explanations within the various sciences and ordinary discourse, as well as the plurality of kinds of objects to which they are committed. Liberal naturalism is not beholden one's ontology to the scientific image, but one can accept non-scientific, non-superficial to the catalog of things it acknowledges. Right? And if one can include those in ontology, whatever that means now. But there are two important problems for liberal naturalism. The first is that it has difficulty in making sense of its metaphysical claims. And the second is that leads to a conception of the relationship philosophy and science, or even sciences, or discourses in general being really disconnected. Why is this? Because on the one hand, it commits to this idea of we should accept all ontologies that come from different discourses, but that just gives you a number of disconnected realities by itself, and it also allows for a plurality of methods. And it does not tell you how distinction of what we should allow in ontology coming from some sort of methodology, then it's not clear how we can stop to really populate the ontology in a way that it's not very clear why we should call this naturalism anymore. Try to go is to say, well, we don't want to accept non-natural entities, so we don't accept, that's not a way that would be an issue as well. Why do we release this understanding of nature that comes from laws of nature? But suppose you do that. Still is the case that will allow in your ontology epiphenomenal properties and entities that do not interfere with laws of nature. And that is, or only do it indirectly, and that would be a weird conception of what, since a lot of supernatural things will come. So we don't have an arbitrary way of excluding things from the metaphysics, and this is bad for even calling this naturalist. Now, there is within this realm, they say, and I also believe, McDowell's position, that it's sort of a little different. What he wants to do is to reform the notion of nature, in a way in which is not the picture of nature that you should have, especially if you want to account for meaning, is not the notion you get from the natural sciences. So McDowell resists the idea that we can explain our intentionality in scientific terms, and thinks that we can do this. We should do this. I think see why this is going to be problematic. So according to him, there is this idea of the simple fact of nature that we have contentful states of mind, and this is not to be explained in any sort of way by the discourses in the natural sciences. It can't be explained because it's of a different kind. It's a different kind of ontology altogether. He has this idea of the second nature as a way of understanding this nature, but it's basically a nature that will not, in principle, can use of natural sciences. So what's beyond the explanatory reach of the natural sciences, and this should be read, we must show this kind of intelligibility something acquires when we situate it in the logical space of reasons. But if it's right, they explicate these capacities by using any resource in the sciences. So we can affirm our right to the normative realm, but we cannot explain this. This would be the wrong thing to do because that's the wrong way of thinking about it. It's the wrong discourse to do it. So what you get is basically disconnected. You have two domains of intelligibility: one and nature, two, second and first, and they don't connect. They do not connect. And because it's the manifest image and the scientific image. Now, Mario, De Caro, MacArthur sort of see this already in their introduction and say, well, this view depends on whether we can bring the relations between these two senses of nature into better focus. It seems that all that were there in the list haven't been able to. Since we think, and it comes from some work we've done, that this might be because in key respects, this view is just too liberal. Strict, right? So. Naturalism that can avoid reductionism while embracing ontological monism Could a naturalism do that while also respecting methodological pluralism in the philosophy and the science? Is there a naturalism that could achieve all of the above while also showing how philosophy and the sciences can connect productively and enter into cooperative dealings? That will lead to the problems I have pointed at. And I'm going to be yes, but we'll see what you think. So the name, though, I mean, you know, the name is just a work in progress name. But the name now, which is it's going to be, as you will see, what it was already called relaxed naturalism yesterday. But I'll say a little bit more here because I want to make clear these different traits of the view. So liberating relaxed naturalism. And liberating relaxed naturalism, difficult to pronounce, is difficult because it's a delicate balancing act. It has to be dealing with bringing the philosophy, bringing the science, bringing pluralism, but also ontological monism. Why is it liberating? That it shows why certain forms of thinking about nature are misleading and mystified. Liberal proposes that one should be about these intelligibility claims, these philosophical claims about what we have the right to think is methodology and ontology to understand nature. This first point. The second point is that it's also going to be relaxed. So thinking about the first point will somehow make room for the idea that a form of naturalism, which is, as I said before, it covers both plurality and ontological monism, the way in which it connects philosophy and the sciences. So here is someone that can be thought to be liberating naturalist. Not yet. All of the long list of people I cited when talking about liberal naturalism, one philosopher that can be thought to be in the background of that position, especially in the Macau case, is Wittgenstein. But we, as I said, this is joint work we've done, we don't think Wittgenstein is a liberal naturalist. A liberating philosopher. Why is this? Well, because Wittgenstein does promote, we think, a form of a naturalistic conception of these issues and rationality, for example, but not because he is committed to unification of pluralism, but because he thinks that the right way is to theorize about things, is not to theorize about things, but to describe them as we find them in daily life. So this idea of facts of daily life is something we want to say this is a form of naturalism, liberating naturalism. So Wittgenstein would be as an endeavor of combining reminders, because representations of different phenomena that call our attention, including, for example, how we follow rules, or when we can say that someone understands the word or has a perceptual concept, and so on. And these conspicuous representations are designed to put us back into contact with explanation is really providing you reminders of things that you already know. With this idea for you already know is that really something which is present in your practice. Now, why is it necessary to call upon these reminders? Because there are misunderstandings. And this is very sort of the heart of the philosophy, to be misunderstanding things systematically. And the idea is that these reminders, which are these, his arguments and remarks, are supposed to put us in contact with the fact that we act in such a way, we punish certain actions, we establish the states of affairs, thus and so, we give orders, we read their accounts, we describe colors, take an interest in other feelings, and so on. So all of these things are things that we know from our practice of doing it, get entangled into it, and we sort of do not have a clear view of how those work. And he proposes that we describe it, and we need to both describe them and also sort of diagnose the misunderstandings. So the more we describe, what we describe, and we sort of clear up a perspicuous representation, we sort of show that dissolves the misunderstanding. And but Wittgenstein obviously was not the discoveries. He was targeting something which was quite familiar to us. Something was part and parcel of what it is to be a competent participant in our form of life and its practices. It was to pay attention to what lies before our eyes, to recognize what has to be accepted, given, or the facts of living a form of life. But, it's quite clear that this is a form of naturalism, because it's appealing to facts of living as a form of life. But he says, we may not advance any theory. There must not be anything hypothetical in our considerations without explanation, and the description alone must take its place. So by describing, we get a sense of nature, but this is not any sort of theory. And again, he says, it often happens that we only become aware of important facts if we suppress the question why. So Wittgenstein is really saying there's something wrong in the philosopher's attempt to provide an explanation, a philosophical explanation of these facts of life. Must do away with this inclination of theorizing philosophically, and we must these facts of nature, these facts of life. The relevant facts are often obscure, but the right philosophical work with them, survey them or rearrange them, right? And this goes hand in hand with this idea of clearing the misunderstanding. So the idea of clarifying goes hand in hand with the obscure Wittgenstein liberating naturalism is not dividing the reality into two distinct domains of fact that cannot be intelligibly connected. Right? That's quite clear from that he's not endorsing a Taoist account. He's saying, should not be doing philosophical theory. You can describe this, but he's not saying, if you do it, then you the credibility of these facts. Nothing like that. It's plain sort of common sense access to these facts. So it's a descriptive approach to philosophy that operates in a framework that allows us to think about nature. This is what I'm going to argue in what follows. So we have a descriptive approach to philosophy, and this framework will allow us to see how philosophy and the science can complement and connect. Because there's nothing, so first point, there's nothing in the view that's possible. But there are issues, of course. So the claim now, in what rests from in the top, is to show how this liberating form of naturalism is compatible with, and it can be complemented with, a form of relaxed naturalism that precisely tells us how we should think of the connection between philosophy and the sciences. The relaxed naturalism is a position that, by the nature of explanandum, say the problem of intentionality, by investigating it in a way that draws and seeks to harmoniously integrate the findings of a large number, range of empirical sciences, including both social and human sciences. So importantly, relaxed naturalism differs from strict naturalism. Now, so how do we get from liberating naturalism to relaxed naturalism? Made clear that it's not making an empirical claim about the specific details of the relevant processes. So this is one point, right? So he's not doing science. He's surveying, resurveying, rearranging these facts, but he's not doing science. He rather invents cases or constructs examples. For example, the language games. Clearly not engaged in an empirical investigation. He's, though, alluding to these very general facts of our situation, but this by means of constructing hypothesis, theory, testing of experiments, right? Language games are not experiments. So he started in these extremely general facts of nature that are hardly to see because they are quite general. But he's not doing this by means of any sort of empirical investigation. So the question that you should be maybe asking yourself is, how is it that this liberating naturalism is going to be compatible or sort of he's not putting forth a claim, he's not putting forth a claim. Now, Trump thinks that he's sort of investigating possibilities, but not making any sort of commitment to the facts being one way or another. But I think that this idea is wrong. The language games are not just considering possibilities, they are targeting facts. The facts of nature, the facts of life, the facts that there are. So he's not in facts about our general situation. At least that's not making a complete quietist. It makes it liberated. Importantly, liberating naturalism targets some kind of facts. These facts do not divide nature into the normative and the non-normative, two principles of intelligibility. This is just plain facts of our situation. To be this fact, I think we should see strict naturalism, with its things, comes with an ill conception of the relevant facts. Ill conception of what are the relevant facts. So the need of providing a sort of reductionist account about science, as we said at the beginning, the claim that all truths are discoverable by hard science, that is a philosophical claim. The Wittgenstein is saying that claim is wrong. That is part of the misunderstanding. And that includes the possibility of the facts. So Wittgenstein liberating naturalism gives you the understanding of the facts by removing obstacles, misunderstanding, and one such misunderstanding is another such misunderstanding is liberal naturalism. Suppose the existence of a special kinds of reproducible normative facts above and beyond the general facts of nature, which Wittgenstein speaks in order to provide us satisfactory accounts of meaning and understanding. So it's both the strict, once one sees that strict naturalism is wrong, liberal naturalism is wrong. Our conception of nature to make room for a special kind of facts. This is what McLaren is brilliant to this because he holds fast to the idea there's an indivisibility of the natural sciences that targets nature, the notion of nature. But the whole dialectics is going wrong. So this is where Wittgenstein ends. Wittgenstein says a philosophical investigation can come to an end. Sort of shows this. Can come to an end with this is a fact of our history. Now, the question then is how does a view like the Wittgenstein connect with the sciences? And we think that the right way of thinking about this is precisely the kind of fancy naturalism. Naturalism says it's fine that philosophical work of clarification of meaning stops there. The clarification of these very notions and these very concepts, and the clearing up and the discussion with others about the misunderstanding or arguments we have for thinking one way or the other. That's what philosophy is doing. But there's more to be done. In particular, the conception that we get from the sciences does not, or better, it is possible to show that the conception you get of nature from the sciences is not incompatible with our facts of our situation. It does not need to be in conflict, but it can also be shown not to be in conflict. And this is what relaxed naturalism does. Relaxed naturalism shows how we can productively engage in work of synthesis and arguments, integrating ideas and suggestions from many distinct research traditions and different sciences. Relaxed naturalism is going to show how these facts of our situation are also the facts that are explained through our different scientific discourses. So let's go back to the problem of intentionality. We said the strict naturalist sees the problem of intentionality. How does the liberal naturalist see the problem of intentionality? Painting relaxed naturalists see the problem of intentionality. With relaxed, liberating naturalists, it is possible to account for the acquisition of our sailor nature by gaining a deeper understanding of the set of skills and habits that are natural to properly well-directed humans. Interpretation, judgment, reflective epistemic responsibility, and sensitivity to relations of intelligence and sport. All of my Godfrey Smith, maybe we'll simplify a little bit, but you get the gist. Thinking, there's an access to second nature, and it's there where we talk of meaning. And relaxed naturalists are saying we can say how is it scientifically say how is it that we gain and acquire these capacities which belong to our nature. So what is the verdict about the problem of that philosophy since Plato's time? We must, according to this view, we must forego attempts to provide purely reductive explanations or like primitive explanation, why it is like McDowell, or rather we should explain how is it possible that content could arise in a natural world. So we have classification on the one hand, and then we can tell you the origins of this bring about. So this is a new naturalistic challenge, which we think is the right challenge to be answered. Three parts, I would say. First, it says you can be a naturalist, you are a naturalist if you're able to describe the evolutionary path from creatures without language, relevant intentional capacities, to the abilities of creatures which don't have that capacity without any doubt. Second, you should be able to say something about how this happens for ontogeny. Third, you must be sensitive when telling these facts to both human and non-human animals' capacities. So the natural origins of content story attempts precisely to provide that story of emergence of content, making essential appeal to the evolution of social cultural practices, intentionality, that do not presuppose the ability to represent anything, including mental states of others. And that's so by appealing to different, as we saw quite a bit of this coming from Dan yesterday. There is a story about information, then there is a story about sensitivity to the environment, and there's also a story about collective intentionality that is going to feature prominently in the evolutionary story, and also in not exactly the same way in the ontogenetical story. So now assumes that biology has put in place mechanisms for social conformism and compliance, including, for example, natural pedagogy. Yes, a concept that comes from psychology, from Sigmund and Gregory, and that those mechanisms allow to stabilize cognitive achievements and social transmission through generations, as many both philosophers and methodologists and psychologists claim, constitute platforms for the emergence of practices that are culturally scaffolded, including linguistic practices and a subset of those linguistic practices which are sensitive to externality and objective. So now this is all fine, but this introduces a sort of, and that would be the kind of problem we have, right? Because we are saying, as long as you are able to tell the story, mysterious about these proxies. But then again, it seems that there's nothing really missing in this story, right? You're telling a story, an evolutionary story, and you can also making sense of the interaction between other animals, children, and ontogeny, about how you get from or maybe capacities to content for rational content deploying capacities. And I don't think, though, you might tell me now in the Q&A, seems to be missing here. There's then a relaxed naturalism story about how to understand the relation between second nature and first nature, if we want to talk that way. The second comes from, the first comes from cultivation and scaffolding of biological platforms. And that is a completely scientific story with, conceptual clarification coming from philosophy. So, this is, Dan and I call it, naturalism in the Goldilocks zone. Because this kind of naturalism reconnects without eliminating differences. Science with philosophy, naturalism and meaning with nature, as opposed to strict naturalism. This means that it's not too strict, not too liberal, but just right.
Thank you for your talk.
Thank you very much for your talk. Actually, I have several questions here, but we'll concentrate on two questions. First of all, I like very much the whole project of naturalized contents and based on this social cultural scaffolding. I have two concerns about this presentation today. One concern on your curiosity. Wittgenstein, the first one is when you're addressing McDowell, you are charging him as a kind of dualist. We have some kind of reality divided into two realms or domains of facts which are not reducible, which other and is not that. Things like we already do, naturalizing intentionality in terms of social dynamics, agents, rational agents in the community. This is a lot when you said about this game of giving and asking for reasons. I'm missing a lot of the work by, and I would not hold Brennan as a kind of dualist. I would like to see what you have to say about that, because he's engaged in a form of intentionality, which is totally compatible with what you're trying to offer to us programmatically. And my second question is, when you use Wittgenstein for motivating philosophically what you're doing, liberating naturalism, it seems to me that you rely on this very difficult notion of forms of life. It belongs to a form of life that we are kind of rational agents, this biological structure, this natural history, and we describe things in the world, and one, because the concept is very elusive, it has no definition for a thing, and kind of use forms of life. But in a sense, you are presupposing forms of life what you should explain to us. It's exactly how our forms of life merge.
I would like to start with the second. It's important that you're saying two things here. So on the one hand, you're saying implicitly facts of like what realm of life is, and on the other hand, you say I should explain this by talking of immersions. And I think this is I'm not quite clear on this question because of this reason. What I'm saying is that the immersions, in the right sense, you take it by appealing to, anthropology, archaeology, psychology, primatology, and sort of synthesis and argument connecting, and evolutionary studies, and synthesis and argument connecting with that. So I did say structurally something. So I didn't say much, and I started by saying, I'm not going to give you all the details, but I'm going to tell you what the framework is, and we can discuss Because once you get the framework, then you can see, then we can know what the constraints on the explanation are. So I think I'm telling you that the immersion story, that the evolutionary story, the phylogenetical, the ontogenetical story comes from this synthesis argument, and I can that's how it goes. It's just now you might be saying, not that I'm presupposing emergence that I should be giving, because I'm telling you how exactly this is going to go, but I am presupposing what the facts of a form of life are, and that I think you said Wittgenstein wasn't clear about this. I think how clear so part of our aim in pursuing the project is to like this. For example, one way of doing this would be to describe different forms of social interaction and collective intentionality. And this is just describing, you can talk about, face-to-face second-person interaction. You can talk about small groups, when there is a face-to-face interaction, but already in sort of group settings. We can talk about this, how children behave with other children, and how children behave with adults. All of this is a description of form of life, right? You can talk about how the interactions with other animals, other mammals go. This by thinking of, research into philosophy. That doesn't need to be just Wittgenstein, of course. And there is a constraint that comes from making sense of this in naturalistic terms. And this is when the emergent system, the evolutionary and the ontogenetic story comes in. And then I tell you there's something mysterious here. So I can both describe philosophically, discuss philosophically these different forms. Maybe, one can discuss whether there is biological information or not, whether, there is ecological information or not. That's a philosophical discussion. And then it comes, so how does this feature in our understanding of nature as understood by the sciences? So that's how the story goes. About the first, so I thought you were going to defend McDowell, but I will say something like, when you say, you are accusing McDowell of this and that. But I think, so McDowell has his commitment to the idea that there are two different principles of intelligibility. That is the problem. Whether that commits him to a metaphysical dualism, I don't think that. I think MacArthur and Le Carre are committed to that, because they say whatever discourse you have, you get the ontology with it. Very problematic. I think McDowell's position is more refined. But still, he has two principles of intelligibility, which means that science has nothing to say, nothing to tell you about the contradictive normative. I can agree with that. We think science, especially if you are relaxed and bring in the right kind of sciences, you learn a lot. By talking about social psychology, sociology, learn a lot about these normative practices. Brandon is a good friend. I like Brandon, I have studied with him, so I guess there is some inspiration in Brandon for the project. But I think interpretation is very, very, very problematic. And I think it really destroys the prospects of giving the story. I didn't make any arguments in this direction today, but I think the way he thinks of interaction already presupposes what it means to explain. Take some of his ideas, very important ideas about the nature of normativity, say that when it comes to the commitment to interpretationism, it's blocking a good view of the collective and social intentionality. Yeah, I don't know whether I should. It's a long story. I can tell you a little more, but I don't know.
Can you answer to one question?
Of course, you can.
Thank you. I have two more questions, Kari, and one, and then Marcel, and then Eric. Okay. So, please, Kari.
Thank you for this final call. question is probably there's something I don't understand, and it's the following. So the critique of liberal naturalism is that actually it's a position where anything goes, essentially. You can have very disconnected ontological levels or whatever. And you say, well, that's not good, so we have to replace it. And one way to replace it is liberating relaxed naturalism. And the idea that then what is constrained on the ontology, these are the empirical sciences, right? Is that correct? But if so, my question is it so clear that all the empirical sciences have the same ontological commitments? I mean, it's not clear to me that different empirical sciences have the same ontological commitments, and this would then imply that you do not necessarily avoid ontological liberalism, but what you do get is some kind of ontological constraints, but I don't necessarily see how the ontological
Yeah, so no, well, you said something that I didn't say.
Okay.
So, but maybe it was my mistake, because maybe I should have said something, which is I didn't say how you, where you get the ontology from. So I don't think this is merely a question of letting the sciences put the ontology there. Like maybe I mean, the kind of Hakar sort of, not only the sciences, everything just, if you know, because you have the variables ranging the objects, then you get all of the objects. Right. So the work of synthesis and argument that the relaxed naturalist is doing is philosophical work. So you know, as a relaxed naturalist, you are still a philosopher doing work with the sciences. You do synthesis and argument, and that means that there's, you know, discussions on what's the ontology are not just to be left to the sciences. It's coherence. There is, you know, this is being responsive to how science thinks of these facts. But the discussion of what facts there are is a metaphysical claim, and it's a philosophical one. So I think this will lead us to a different talk. But for us would be, well, you know, there are, we want to, at the level of methodology, we want to research to physics and biology and social science works for that, and culture. But then there is a question of a discussion of how we understand the nature of the opposites, right? And I think we have a modest, like a principle of a sort of modest comparison. Like, we don't want to populate things when it's not necessary. Yeah, you want to say something?
Short addition to that, I think it's important. I mean, I think the question is well taken. Prospect of the record story, but when we come to the accounts of what information is and how we understand it, we don't just let the sciences operate. We're interrogative of what they're saying, and then we want to piece together a story about where the borders between biology, physics, biology, culture, etc. So there's a huge program, a different sort of program that relate non-reductively. I mean, that's just in the background. That's not even sketched very much, right?
Right, but it's
not anything that goes. It's definitely not anything that goes liberal.
I'm worried about the dependence of definition on
depends on
the dependence on definition. Because I think you don't need it. And so that makes me. I think what you're saying is that you're relaxing so far you're going to be methodologically constrained by this work of synthesis and argument. That's where your naturalists are. That's what distinguishes you from the liberals. But you want to be liberal. liberal, it's liberal but not anything goes. I mean, you don't want to you want to do those two things. Intelligible in those terms, which is not something you want to say. Then that's why I don't. So what does it mean then to say facts of nature are facts of life?
No, it's
because I'm understanding it in the Wittgensteinian way, where it's already constantly evolving.
No. That's a lot of it. Let me say something important first. So your first word. I think this is getting the view wrong. So part of the material here comes from a paper that Dan and I wrote together, which is not out yet, but it's out in the internet. It's called Naturalism in the Goldilocks Zone and Wittgenstein Balancing Act. Now, the balancing act is very important. So you said it's part of the story is that synthesis and argument from the sciences, but that's not the whole story, because there is the philosophical clarification part of the story. Now, that doesn't mean that I depend on Wittgenstein. Actually, I feel like Wittgenstein is useful. Maybe McDowell can be useful as well, some of it. Some of Wittgenstein, I'm not committed to everything Wittgenstein said, or McDowell, or anything else, or anyone else. Right? It's just, there is a clarification. That's why you need deliberating and relaxing. It's not just a relaxing, it's not just a synthesis of sciences. It's the philosophical clarification of what I was saying to Marcos before. So I think form of life features in Wittgenstein in a way which is useful, but also features in Aristotle, and I think it's also useful, maybe not all of it, right? So no, there is a philosophical insight into facts of life, which, for example, includes thinking about issues we were discussing in Chile related to whether one should think that human cognition is transformative or additive. Yes, it doesn't. You won't get it if you get it from the scientists. It's because they are doing philosophy. Not just whatever it's a reflection on what we can say about these facts. And so I think Wittgenstein is a kind of phenomenologist in that he's describing a sort of experience and form of life of how we should think of this and that. And this is important. You are not. I think McDowell is sort of trying to do that as well, in part because he's a Palestinian. But so you're thinking, would we understand a lion if he would speak to us? Of course, this is open to interpretation, but reflection on what is the lions is an issue. We already knew that whether you are in contact with lions or not. It's just, how does this work, and what would it mean to say one thing or the other? And then there is a clarification of how we understand this. He says, that speaking, I don't remember, but thinking, writing, walking, eating, celebrating, and all of that is always part of form of life. And you have a weird list there of things. And so to say that those are called all content involving, he says that. He's very clear that there are different forms of even language is not contentful. Even Random acknowledges this and says, I did part from it can be made fit with a solution of different. But we have this list, and one question is, how these different things that we do and belong to the form of life, which is just purely descriptive, how we understand that in the telling within the emotion requires us to also look into the developmental psychology and maybe primatology and some version of the neuroscience and how the brain is operating. All of this is perfectly compatible.
Then do you think, I mean, I think that definition would accept that there are some things that are and that are not facts.
This is not what it says.
Generalization, but I do think that the way
What generalization?
of all the things that are facts of life.
He says,
So that's the kind of claim that you want to make.
no, I'm not. I don't know. I'm not saying that. But he says, you know, we walk, we talk, I don't know, we think, and all these are facts of life. Right? And I'm not saying anything that, you know, tries to make all of these the same.
No, but I think I was thinking naturalism, as you described it, was saying that
No, of course
facts
not.
of nature are facts, which means is a part of life. I think that is a part of life.
Or whom?
For you,
No,
that
I mean,
is
there is insight into life that comes from philosophy, from there is insight into life that comes from biology. There is evolutionary theory that comes into it, like, for example, social learning, community. That's what community, forget it. Cultural accumulation, cumulative history, all of these things. Those are human life, not human primary.
Glenda, very nice presentation. The way you reverse different science allows you to conceive a more flexible relationship between use, science, social life, and so on. But then my question is about your conclusions. You, if I'm not wrong, you made movement. You say skills and acts allow what to about the second day. First of all, I don't think it's easy to deal with this expression properly integrated humans. I think this problems in different fields and what's properly. But beyond that, you say that it's also necessary to refer to mechanisms of social conformism. Not like the joke. Yesterday we were revolutionary here. Today we're talking about conformism. And a second way, well, I will not speaking back to something like what I suppose what you are trying to keep up.
Okay, that's a good questions, and I guess I mean, again, this goes to the sort of overview that I was giving, but about the enculturation, I think it's very interesting that Wittgenstein, so in that list of things, that list of very different practices, and those sort of very different practices that he talks about as facts of life, as part of the form of life. There are some that are culturally dependent and others are not. But also, this talk about enculturation comes heavily from people working in philosophy of biology and evolutionary studies, and for example, Kim Sterling and Tomasello. So many and others claim that that what that one way to understand human cognition is to think of the special ways in which humans socialize, and that can give us a hint into the hominids story about when and how, especially abilities which are proper to humans but not other primates, evolve. And in that story, there is a idea of the various domains of philosophy, including personality. So I think this is very useful. It doesn't mean that. So again, I'm not making any claim about the difference between this culture or that culture, though things like that might come into a story at some point. But it's more a sort of a structural claim about the nature of human form of life. And you can, I mean, some people even claim that there are cultures which are the transformation of environments, which can be called culture, which are not specifically human. But at least I think we can think of this as being part of the practices that, historical practices that in part contributed to the transformation of cognitive abilities of humans. Yeah, I don't remember if there was anything else in that question.
Second thing.
Okay. No, well, and then that's again, this is an issue we are discussing. I use that terminology because I wanted to show you that it becomes not mysterious. And actually, the notion of second nature, Michael takes it from Aristotle, and it's the idea that you can sort of training the practices comes from the Nicomachean ethics, and the idea that you can sort of ways of behaving and virtuous, something that you do and that you sort of learn from others is a social skill. Social skills. That's the idea. So I think that idea and for the same reasons I answer to the first question. But I don't want to make more about now, which is
You made a very direct link between dynamical systems theory and the rejection of content as purely metaphysical. So the very reductive point of view. So it is nothing intrinsically that leads to that. Only if you marry it to a Rosenbergian reductive philosophy you get that. But you can use DST to study the kind of processes which you want to include in your wider worldview, like the developmental processes, the social processes. These can be studied in the tool of dynamical system theory without implying any reductive position on the ontology of physics.
right. No, I think you're right, and that would be exactly the way in which I would like to use the dynamical system theory. But
people use it that way.
Yeah. You can use it to describe the brain patterns and the interaction between the environment and brain and maybe other brains as well. But this is at a level in which you're not. It's a different level of description. I should say, though, this doesn't sort of fit in exactly the terms I was giving you the positions today. But I do think that there is a problem. So these can be used as long as we make that clarification that you just made. Also, that in some times, if you have systems, maybe if one, so the need of expanding the resources. So once you get to the deliberative relaxed naturalism and you have the expansion of the resources, then I think it's very natural that to bring the dynamic system theories as well. But there's a lot of resources that are made. So we won't do just with the dynamic systems plus a sort of first person sense feeling coming into it. There's going to be much more complex. And so I think there's something in this idea of, when we target the facts, we get the dynamic system theory, and that's it. And I think, no, there's more to be said about the facts. But that doesn't mean that that is excluded.
Let's